Hello and welcome to MindShifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour, and today is Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet, and it's a tool I've been using to great effect for 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it absolutely free over and over again. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, where people have been stepped through that worksheet process, and if you choose to listen to those, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. And we hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, you can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. Or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a comment or a question, feedback or input from you, an answer to something, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And alternatively, if you are listening through the live.needle.com/mindshiftersradio, if you want to give a comment or call in, you need to download the Needle app. So you can go to your app store and download the Needle AI for Live Radio app on your phone. Once you sign in and like this show, then every time we go live, you'll get a notification. And you'll also have the opportunity then, if you agree to the terms of the app, that we have zero tolerance policy for hateful statements, etc., then it gives you the option to comment or call in. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody does that, because it makes it so much easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be of service, and we would welcome any guidance you can give us on how to be of service to you. We have been exploring not just the tools that Michael and Jeannie Ryce make available on the whyagain.org website, but we've been exploring various books, various readings, various other spiritual teachings that are similar or in line with this work. We talk about things that have happened on the support groups that happen on Tuesday and Thursday nights. And we would welcome your comments, questions, suggestions. I think I was talking yesterday on the show that I did through Podbean, since the Needle app was down. I talked about the powerful podcast titled The Telepathy Tapes, and a book that written by one of those people who's been gifted with a nonverbal autistic offspring who is telepathic. And so they've discovered that the telepathy that they're experiencing in their sons and daughters is just the tip of the iceberg for what these savant or genius gifts that these people have. They just begin with the telepathy. That's not the end of the story. And the more they explore this, the more they research it, the more they're, expanding their exposure to the news that this happens, that there are some people who have amazing gifts. And we've known this for, lots and lots of years. There are people who have autism can sit down at a piano. Occasionally, there comes along a person with autism who can sit down at a piano and flawlessly play anything they've heard musically prior to that, even if they've had no lessons. And there are certain people who have an amazing capacity for doing math calculations in their heads. And they can do it faster than someone standing next to them who's well versed in how to use a calculator. And while they've known that certain of these genius skills exist in people who are autistic and nonverbal, there's a tremendous hesitance to allowing that mental telepathy might be one of those gifts. That the ability to send and receive images and thoughts might be every bit as powerfully real as the gifts of someone who's hearing music and can instantly translate that into a beautiful piano piece, even if they've never had any lessons. So feel free to check that out. It's called the Telepathy Tapes. It's a podcast. And there is a book that's authored by one of those parent and offspring teams. The title of that book is The Book of Heaven by K and H Asher, Asher. The other thing I was doing, in lieu of anybody typing a comment or raising a hand to say hello, is yesterday I started reading from the book by Thich Nhat Hanh. The book title is Being Peace. And the second lesson there is titled The Three Gems. And the text reads, many of us worry about the world situation. We don't know when the bombs will explode. We feel that we are on the edge of time. As individuals, we feel helpless and despairing. The situation is so dangerous. The injustice is so widespread. The danger is so close. In this kind of situation, if we panic, things will only become worse. We need to remain calm and to see clearly. Meditation is to be aware and to try to help. I like to use the example of a small boat crossing the Gulf of Siam. In Vietnam, there are many people called boat people. They leave the country in small boats. Often the boats are caught in rough seas or storms. The people may panic, and the boats can sink. But even if one person aboard can remain calm, lucid, knowing what to do and what not to do, he or she can help the boat survive. His or her expression, their face, their voice, communicates clarity and calmness, and people begin to have trust in that person. They will listen to what he or she says. One such person can save the lives of many. Our world is something like a small boat. Compared with the cosmos, our planet is a very small boat. We're about to panic because our situation is no better than the situation of the small boat in the sea. We know that we have more than 50,000 nuclear weapons. Humankind has become a very dangerous species. We need people who can sit still and be able to smile. People who can walk peacefully. We need people like that in order to save us. Mahayana Buddhism says that you are that person, that each of you is that person. I once had a student named Thich Nhat Hanh who entered the monastery at the age of 6. At the age of 17, he began to study with me. Later, he was the first director of the School of Youth for Social Service, where he directed thousands of young people working during the war in Vietnam, rebuilding villages that were destroyed, and resettling tens of thousands of refugees fleeing the war zones. He was killed in an accident. I was in Copenhagen when I heard of the death of my student. He was a very gentle monk, very brave. When he was a novice, 6 or 7 years old, he saw people come to the temple and bring cakes and bananas to offer to the Buddha. He wanted to know how the Buddha eats bananas, so he waited until everyone went home and the shrine was closed. And then he peered through the door, waiting for the Buddha to reach out his hand, take a banana, peel it, and eat it. He waited and waited, but nothing happened. The Buddha did not seem to eat bananas unless he realized that someone was spying on him. Thich Nhat Hanh told me several other stories about when he was a young boy. When he discovered that the statue of the Buddha was not the Buddha, he began to ask where the Buddhas are, because it did not seem to him that Buddhas were living among humans. He concluded that Buddhas must not be very nice, because when people become Buddhas, they would leave us to go to a faraway country. I told him, Buddhas are us. They are made of flesh and bones, not copper or silver or gold. The Buddha statue is just a symbol of the Buddha, in the same way that the American flag is a symbol of America. The American flag is not the American people. The root word Bud, B-U-D-H, means to wake up, to know, to understand. A person who wakes up and understands is called a Buddha. It is as simple as that. The capacity to wake up, to understand, and to love is called Buddha nature. When Buddhists say, quote, I take refuge in the Buddha, close quotes, they are expressing trust in their own capacity of understanding and their own capacity of becoming awake. The Chinese and the Vietnamese say, I go back and rely on the Buddha in me. And they add the phrase in me, so it makes it very clear that you yourself are the Buddha. In Buddhism, there are 3 gems. Buddha, the awakened one, Dharma, the way of understanding and loving, and Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. The three are interrelated, and at times it's hard to distinguish one from the other. In everyone, there is a capacity to wake up, to understand, and to love. Now, this is not just a Buddhist tenet. Most deep spiritual traditions have something very similar to this last line. In everyone, there is the capacity to wake up, to understand, and to extend love. So in ourselves, we find Buddha, and we also find Dharma and Sangha. I will explain more about Dharma and Sangha, but first I want to say something about Buddha, the one who develops his or her understanding and capacity for extending love to the highest degree. In parentheses, he says here, in Sanskrit, understanding is prajna, Prajna, and love is karuna or maitri. That's a closed parentheses. So in Sanskrit, we have the words that's prajna, that stands for understanding, and love is called karuna or maitri. So he goes on, understanding and love aren't two separate things. They're just one. Suppose your son wakes up in the morning and sees it is already quite late. He decides to wake up his young sister to give her enough time to eat breakfast before going to school. It happens that she is grouchy, and instead of saying, "Thank you for waking me up," she shouts, "Shut up and leave me alone," and kicks him. Well, the son will probably get angry, thinking, "I woke her up nicely, why did she kick me?" He may want to go to the kitchen and tell you about it, or even kick her back. But then he remembers that during the night his sister coughed a lot, and he realizes she must be sick. Maybe she has a cold. Maybe that is why she behaved in such a mean way. Instantly, he is not angry anymore. At that moment, there is Bud in him. He understands. He is awake. When you understand, you cannot help but extend love. You cannot get angry. To develop understanding, you have to practice looking at all living beings with the eyes of compassion. When you understand, you extend love. When you extend love, you naturally act in a way that can relieve the suffering of people. Someone who is awake, who knows, who understands, is called a Buddha. Buddha is in every one of us. We can become awake, we can become understanding, and also loving. I often tell children that if their mother or father is very understanding and loving, working, taking care of the family, smiling, and being lovely as a flower, they can say, "Mommy or Daddy, you are all Buddha today." Referencing the idea that Buddha is these qualities, not a person or an embodied soul. 2,500 years ago, there was a person who practiced in a way that his understanding and love became perfected, and everyone in the world recognized this. His name was Siddhartha, and Siddhartha was very young. When he was very young, he began to think that life contained a lot of suffering, that people didn't love and understand each other enough. So he left his home to go to the forest to practice meditating, breathing, and smiling. He became a monk, and he tried to practice in order to develop his awakening, his understanding, and his love to the highest levels. He practiced sitting meditation. He practiced walking meditation. He did this for several years with 5 friends who were also monks. And Although they were intelligent people, they made mistakes. For instance, one day they ate only one piece of fruit, one mango or one guava or one star fruit. Sometimes people exaggerate and say that Siddhartha ate only one sesame seed a day. But I went to the forest in India where he practiced, and I know that is silly because there are no sesame seeds there. I saw also the Naranjara River in which he bathed several times, and the Bodhi tree where he sat and became a Buddha. The Bodhi tree I saw was not the same tree. It is a great, great, great grandchild of the first Bodhi tree. One day, Siddhartha became so weak he could not practice. And as he was an intelligent young man, he decided to go to the village and get something to eat, bananas or cake or anything. But as soon as he took 4 or 5 steps, he stumbled and fainted. He lost consciousness because he was too hungry. He would have died, but the village chief's daughter, Sujata, who was taking food to the other forest gods, saw him and came over. She found that he was still alive, still breathing, but very weak, so she took a bowl and poured some milk into his mouth. At first, Siddhartha did not react, but then his lips moved and he began to drink the milk. He drank a whole bowl of milk and he felt much better and slowly sat up. He looked beautiful because Siddhartha was very, very handsome as a person. Nowadays, people make statues of him that are not very handsome. Sometimes they are even grouchy, without a smile on his face. But he was a very beautiful person, and Sujata thought that he must be the god of the mountain. She kneeled down and was about to worship, but he stretched out his arm to tell her not to, and he told her something. What do you think he must have said to her? He said, "Please give me another bowl of milk." He saw that the milk was doing wonderful things, and he knew that once our body is strong enough, we can succeed in meditation. The young lady was so happy she poured him another bowl of milk. After that, she inquired about him, and he said that he was a monk trying to meditate to develop his compassion and his understanding to the highest level so that he could help other people. She asked if there was anything she could do to help, and Siddhartha said, "Each day at noontime, can you give me a small bowl of rice? That would help me very much." So from that day on, she brought him some rice wrapped in banana leaves, and sometimes she also brought milk. The 5 other monks Siddhartha had been practicing with despised him and thought him worthless. "Let us go somewhere else to practice. He drinks milk and he eats rice. He has no perseverance." But Siddhartha did very well. Day in and day out he meditated. And he developed his insight, his understanding, and his compassion very, very quickly as he recovered his health. One day after taking a swim in the Naranjara River, he had the impression that he only needed one more sitting to come to a total breakthrough, to become a fully enlightened person. When he was about to sit down, still practicing walking meditation, a buffalo boy came by. In India, 2,500 years ago, water buffalo were used to pull the plows, and a buffalo boy's job was to watch them, bathe them, and take care of them, and cut grass for them to eat. As the buffalo boy came by, he saw Siddhartha walking very peacefully, and he liked him immediately. Sometimes we see someone that we like very much, even if we don't know why. The boy wanted to say something, but he was shy, so he came near Siddhartha 3 or 4 times before saying, "Gentleman, I like you very much." Siddhartha looked at him and said, "I like you also." Encouraged by this response, the boy told him, "I really want to give you something, but I have nothing I can give you." And Siddhartha said, "You do have something that I need. You have a very beautiful green grass that you just cut. If you want to, please give me an armful of that grass." The boy was so happy. to be able to give him something, and Siddhartha thanks him very much. After the buffalo boy left, Siddhartha spread the grass into a cushion that he could sit on. As he sat down, he made a firm vow: until I get true enlightenment, I shall not stand up. With this strong determination, he meditated all night, and when the morning star appeared in the sky, he became a fully enlightened person, a Buddha, with the highest capacity to understand and extend love. The Buddha stayed at that spot for 2 weeks, smiling and enjoying his breathing. Every day, Sujata brought him rice, and the buffalo boy also came by to see him. He taught them about understanding, extending love, and being awake. There is a scripture in the Pali Canon called the Sutra of Tending Buffalo, which lists 11 skills a buffalo boy must have, such as recognizing his own buffalo, making smoke to keep mosquitoes away, taking care of wounds on the body of buffalo, helping buffalo cross rivers, finding places with enough water and grass to eat. After listing 11 skills, the Buddha tells the monks that meditation is also like this, and he lists 11 parallel skills for the monks, recognizing the 5 components of a human being, and so on. Most stories of the life of the Buddha overlook the 2 weeks he stayed near the Bodhi tree, meeting with Sujata and the buffalo boy, walking slowly, enjoying themselves. But I'm sure that it happened this way. Otherwise, how could the Buddha have delivered the Sutra of Tending Buffalo? In fact, when the buffalo boy grew up, he must have become a disciple of the Buddha. And one day, as he sat in the front of the assembly, the Buddha delivered that sutra. After 2 weeks, the Buddha realized he had to get up from his seat under the Bodhi tree and share his understanding and compassion with other people. He told Sujata and the buffalo boy, "I'm sorry, but I have to leave now. We are so happy together, but I must go and work with the adults." He thought about how he could share his understanding and compassion, and he remembered the 5 friends who had practiced with him. He walked an entire day in order to find them. And when he happened upon their camp, they had just finished their afternoon sitting meditation. They sat a lot. They were very thin by now, as you can imagine. One of them saw the Buddha coming and said to the others, "Don't stand up if he comes. Don't go to the gate to welcome him. Don't go and fetch water for him to wash his feet and his hands. He didn't persevere. He ate rice. He drank milk." And yet, when he arrived, he was so attractive and so peaceful that they could not help themselves from offering him to wash his feet and his hands and giving him a special seat. The Buddha told them, "Friends, I have found a way to develop understanding and loving. Please sit down, I'll teach you." They did not believe at first. They said, "Siddhartha, while we practiced together, you gave up. You drank milk. You ate rice. How is it possible you've become a fully enlightened person? Please tell us. We cannot believe it." The Buddha said, "Friends, have I ever told you a lie?" In fact, he'd never lied to anyone, and these 5 friends remembered that. "I've never told you a lie. Now I am not telling you a lie. I have become a fully enlightened person, and I'll be your teacher. Sit down and listen to me." And the 5 of them sat down and listened to the Buddha. He gave his first Dharma talk for adults. If you want to read his words, they're available in a wonderful sutra called Discourse on Turning the Wheel of the Dharma, which explains the basic doctrines of Buddhism: suffering, the causes of suffering, the removal of suffering, and the way to do it. I've read many accounts of the life of the Buddha, and I see him as a person just like us. Sometimes artists draw a Buddha in a way that you cannot recognize him as a human being. In fact, he is a human being. I have seen so many Buddha statues, but not many really beautiful and simple ones. Anytime you want to draw a picture of a Buddha, please sit down and breathe for 5 or 10 minutes, smiling before you pick up the pen to draw a Buddha. And then draw a simple Buddha, beautiful but simple, with a smile. And if you can, draw some children sitting with him. Buddha is young, not too grim, not too solemn, with a very light smile on his face. We have to go in this direction because when we look at the Buddha, we have to like him just as the buffalo boy and Sujata did. When we say, quote, I take refuge in the Buddha, close quotes, we can understand also that the Buddha takes refuge in me. Because without the second part, the first part isn't complete. The Buddha needs us for awakening, understanding, and love to be real things and not just concepts. They must be real things that have real effects on life. Whenever I say, I take refuge in the Buddha, I hear, Buddha takes refuge in me. There is a verse for planting trees and other plants. It reads like this, quote, I entrust myself to earth. Earth entrusts herself to me. I entrust myself to Buddha. Buddha entrusts herself to me. Close quotes. Now, as I'm reading this, I'm hearing this is the same teaching as the teachings about the Christ mind, not Jesus the Christ, not a person, but a state of mind, a state of experience, a state of connection. And it's the same with what Thich Nhat Hanh is talking about here in the book Being Peace, what he's talking about as the Buddha. It's this state of being in which and from which we develop compassion and understanding and the capacity to extend love to greater and greater degrees. And to my eye and ear, that's exactly what people are referring to when they talk about the Christ mind. They talk about Christed consciousness. So the text goes on here in Thich Nhat Hanh's book titled Being Peace. And the text reads, as I say I entrust myself to earth, it's like I say I take refuge in the Buddha. I identify myself with the plant. The plant will die or be alive because of the earth. The plant takes refuge in the earth, the soil. And yet earth entrusts herself to me because each leaf that falls down and decomposes makes the soil richer. We know that the layer of soil that is rich and beautiful has been made by the vegetation. If the earth is green and beautiful, it is because of this vegetation. Therefore, while the vegetation needs the earth also needs the vegetation to express herself as a beautiful planet. So when we say I entrust myself to earth, I'm also saying earth entrusts herself to me. I entrust myself to Buddha, and Buddha entrusts herself to me. It is very clear that the wisdom, the understanding, and the love of Buddha need us to be real again in life. Therefore, we have a very important task to realize awakening, to realize accomplishment of compassion, and to realize understanding. We are all Buddhas. Only through us can understanding and love become tangible and effective. Thich Nhat Hanh was killed during his effort to help other people. He was a good Buddhist. He was a good Buddha because he was able to help tens of thousands of people who were victims of the war. Because of him, awakening, understanding, and extending love were real things for many people. So we can call him a Buddha body. In Sanskrit, we say Buddhakaya. For Buddhism to be real, there must be Buddhakaya in embodiment, in the embodiment state of awakened activity. Otherwise, Buddhism is just a word. Thich Nhat Hanh was a Buddhakaya. There's another name here. Um, Shakyamuni was also a Buddhakaya. When we realize awakening, when we are understanding and extending love, each of us is a Buddhakaya, meaning the embodiment of the capacity for extending awakening, understanding, and love. Now, the second gem is called Dharma. Dharma is spelled D-H-A-R-M-A. Dharma is what the Buddha taught. It is the way of understanding and love. How to understand, how to extend love, how to make understanding and love into real things. But before the Buddha passed away, he said to his students, quote, "Dear friends, my physical body will not be here tomorrow, but my teaching body will always be here to help. You can consider it as your own teacher, a teacher who never leaves you." Close quotes. That is the birth of Dharmakaya, or this body of teaching. Dharma has a body also, the body of the teaching. The meaning of Dharmakaya is quite simple, although some people and Mahayana have made it very complicated. Dharmakaya just means the teaching of the Buddha, the way to realize understanding and love. Later it became something like the ontological ground of being. Anything that can help you wake up has Buddha nature. When I'm alone and a bird calls me, I return to myself. I breathe and I smile. And sometimes it calls me once more. I smile and say to the bird, "I hear you already." Not only sounds, but sights can remind you to return to your true self. In the morning, when you open your window and see the light streaming in, you can recognize it as the voice of the Dharma. And it becomes part of the Dharmakaya, or the body of the teaching. That is why people who are awake see the manifestation of the Dharma, or the teaching, in everything. They see it in a pebble, in a bamboo tree, in the cry of a baby. Anything can be the voice of the Dharma calling. We can practice just like that. In the 13th century, a monk came to visit. A monk came to visit Tu Trung, T-U-E, capital T-R-U-N-G. Tu Trung was the most illustrious teacher of Buddhism in Vietnam at that time. The monk said to him, or asked him, "What is the pure, immaculate Dharmakaya?" Tu Trung pointed to the excrement of a horse. This was an irreverent approach to Dharmakaya because people were using the word immaculate to describe it. You can't use words to describe the Dhyākarma. Dharmakaya. Even though we say it is an immaculate thing and it is pure, that doesn't mean that it is separate from things that are, quote, impure, close quotes. Reality, ultimate reality, is free from all adjectives and descriptors, whether they are pure or impure. So Tu Trung's response was to shake up the monk's mind so he could cleanse himself of all of these judgments or adjectives or qualifiers in order to see into the true nature of the body of the teaching, which is the actual expression of life in the moment. Not our thoughts about it, not the labeling of it, but the truth of it, the truth of life experience. A teacher is also part of the Dharmakaya, the body of teaching, because she or he helps us be awake. The way she looks, the way she lives her daily life, the way she deals with people, animals and plants, all of this helps us realize and understand our deep appreciation for love in our life. There are many ways of teaching. Teaching by words, teaching by books, teaching by tape recorders. I have a friend who is a Zen teacher in Vietnam, quite well known. He isn't allowed to preach in Ho Chi Minh City because if he teaches there, too many people come to hear him, and the government doesn't like that. Therefore, people make tape recordings of his talks, and he has become known as Cassette Monk. He is still in Vietnam. The government chased him away from his monastery, so he had to go to another place to teach. Even if we can't hear the teachings of the Cassette Monk, his being is very helpful to us in being awake. For he is part of the body of teaching, the Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya is not just expressed in words, in sounds. It can express itself in just being. Sometimes if we don't do anything, we help more than if we do a lot. We call that non-action. It's like the calm person on a small boat in a storm. That person does not have to do much, just be herself, and the situation can change. That is also an aspect of Dharmakaya. Not talking, not teaching, just being. Being calm, being loving, being compassionate, being present, being awake, being with understanding. This is true not only of humans, but of other species as well. Look at the trees in our yard. An oak tree is an oak tree. That is all it has to do. If an oak tree is less than an oak tree, then we're all in trouble. Therefore, the oak tree is preaching the Dharma without doing anything, not serving in the school of youth for social service, not preaching, not even sitting in meditation. The oak tree is very helpful to all of us just by being there. Every time we look at the oak tree, we have confidence. During the summer, we sit under it and we feel cool and relaxed. We know that if the oak tree is not there and all the other trees were not there, we would not have good air to breathe. In our former lives, perhaps we were trees. Maybe we have even been oak trees ourselves. This isn't just Buddhist theory, it's science. Human species is a very young species. We appeared on the earth only recently. Before that, we were rock, we were gas, we were minerals, we were single-celled beings, we were plants, we were trees, and now we become humans. We have to recall our past experiences. This is not difficult. You just sit down and breathe and look, and you can see your past experiences. When we shout at the oak tree that the tree isn't, when we shout at the oak tree is not offended. When we praise the oak tree, it doesn't raise its nose. We can learn the Dharma from the oak tree. Therefore, the oak tree is part of our Dharmakaya, in other words, body of teaching. We can learn from everything that is around and that is in us. Even if we aren't at a meditation center, we can still practice at home because the Dharma is ever present. Life itself is there to teach us if we just ask it to. It's another way to say this, and it's kind of what I derive from the Way of Mastery. Guy Finley says that the capacity for learning in your life will never leave you if you simply ask to be shown, ask to be taught. That's what I get from their talking about the Dharma, the teaching that can come to you by simply allowing yourself to see clearly and fully what is going on in life around you. To be present, to develop understanding, to develop compassion, to develop the capacity to extend love, and to be taught by life in that process. Thich Nhat Hanh goes on saying, everything is preaching the Dharma. Each pebble, each leaf, each flower is preaching to you the teaching of life. It's preaching the Sadharma Pundarika Sutra. The Sangha is a community that lives in harmony and awareness. Sanghakaya is a new Sanskrit term. Sangha means a body also. When you are with your family and you practice by smiling, breathing, recognizing the Buddha and the Buddha body in yourself and in your children, then your family becomes a Sangha. If you have a bell in your home, the bell becomes part of your Sanghakaya because the bell helps you to practice. If you have a cushion, then the cushion also becomes part of the Sanghakaya. Many things help us practice. The air for breathing. If you have a park or a riverbank near your home, you're very fortunate because you can enjoy practicing this walking meditation. You have to discover your Sanghakaya, inviting a friend to come with you and to practice. Have tea, have them sit with you, have them join you for a walking meditation. All those efforts are to establish your Sanghakaya at home. Practice is easier if you have a Sanghakaya. In other words, if you're consciously developing the practice and the environment and your awareness of the environment and using it to help you focus and practice, then you're developing this body of the teaching. Siddhartha, the Buddha to be, while practicing with other people, began to drink milk, and the 5 monks who were with him went away. So he made the Bodhi tree into his Sanghakaya. He made the buffalo boy, Sujata, the river, the trees, and the birds around him into his environment for growth and teaching, or the Sanghakaya, the body of the environment in which he dedicated himself to learning. Sanghakaya. There are those in Vietnam who live in re-education camps. They don't have a Sangha. They don't have a Zen center, but they practice. They have to look upon other things as part of their Sanghakaya. I know of people who practiced walking meditation in their prison cells. They told me this after they got out of the camp. So while we are lucky and while we are still capable of finding so many elements to set up our Sanghakaya, we should do so. Take advantage of your capacity to get outside and walk and breathe and sit in comfort and practice your meditation and practice your questioning life, asking to be taught. Because a friend, your children, your own brother or sister, your house, the trees in your backyard, all of them can be turned by you into this Sanghakaya, this body of the space in which you learn the Dharma, the teachings of life. Practicing Buddhism, practicing meditation is for us to be serene and happy, understanding and extending love. In that way, we work for the peace and happiness of our family and our society. If we look closely, the 3 gems are actually one. In each of them, the other 2 are already there. In Buddha, there is Buddhahood. There is the Buddha body. In Buddha, there is the Dharma body, because without the Dharma body, he could not have become a Buddha. Without the teaching body, without the awareness of how to grow in understanding and the ability to extend love. In the Buddha, there is the Sangha body because he had breakfast with the Bodhi tree, with other trees, the birds, and the environment. In a meditation center, we have the Sangha body, the Sanghakaya, because the way of understanding and compassion is practiced there. This is to say, to surround yourself with other people who are like-minded, who are trying to develop compassion and understanding and the capacity to extend love. Therefore, the Dharma body is present the way the teaching is present, But the teaching cannot become real without the life and the body of each one of us. So the Buddhakaya is also present. If Buddha and Dharma are not present, it is not a Sangha. Without you, the Buddha is not real. It's just an idea. Without you, the Dharma cannot be practiced. You have to be willing to accept a teaching. You have to be willing to grow in your capacity to understand and extend love and be joyful. Without you, the Buddha is not real. It's just an idea. The Dharma has to be practiced. Without you, it's not real. Without each of you, the Sangha cannot be. And that is when we say, I take refuge in the Buddha, and we also hear, the Buddha takes refuge in me. We're all connected. Giving and receiving are part of a flow. Ask, and you shall receive. Knock, and it shall be opened. You're all connected. Learning takes subject-object presence awareness for it to happen. There has to be a willingness to learn, a willingness to open yourself to be taught by life. When we say, I take refuge in the Dharma takes refuge in me. When I take refuge in Sangha, Sangha takes refuge in me. I cannot grow without asking to be shown. I can't grow without a willingness to be open to new experience, new presence. Lane writes, great discussion and all the meanings behind all your lessons is very helpful to me in looking at another way to live in this world. Thank you. Well, you're most assuredly welcome and deserving, Lane. And this teaching, it surprises me how much as I'm reading this book again with Thich Nhat Hanh, titled Being Peace, how he's talking about the importance of remaining calm in a crisis. And he uses the example of the boat people and how one calm person on a boat can save the entire boat from going into panic. And it's resonating for me, the memory of the blessing that I had from being raised in a family where I was absolutely inundated with, infused with this phrase. When something intensely negative or bad happens, the phrase that goes off in my head is, this is way too important to panic about. So take a breath and get centered before deciding your course of action. Acting from that calm, centered space is what I was taught to do whenever there was an injury, whenever there was glass that was broken, whenever there was a car accident, whenever anybody slipped or fell, whenever anybody was choking on food at a restaurant or at a dinner table, whenever there was somebody who was threatening violence against another person. I was taught to wake up in the moment and realize this is way too important to panic about, and to center and calm myself with a breath or two, and then decide the course of action. And that, to my eye and ear, is a big part of what we were just reading in the second chapter of the book from Thich Nhat Hanh, titled Being Peace. So we've got about 5 minutes or so to take a comment or a question. Thank you, Lane, for that comment. I want to remind people that if you're listening at live.needle.com/MindShifters Radio, you will need to download the Needle app if you want to make a comment or be able to call in live. It is delightful to be back on Needle and to have actual listeners that I can see. Thank you all for listening and being here on the app. And let us know how we're doing. Send me an email, tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And I believe Michael and Jeannie will be on for a second hour today. In light of the changes that they've been making with the Needle app and our efforts to have a little bit of downtime, a couple minutes of downtime for the app to get used to the switchover. Since no one's raising a hand, I will thank you all for being here. I will remind you that we come from love. We're made of the stuff that we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. And I'll be back again tomorrow, and Michael and Jeannie should start their second show in just a matter of minutes. Please come back to your Needle app when you get that notification, and spend some time with Michael and Jeannie. Blessings.